Hey there, Sean Terry here, Flip2Freedom.com. And what I want to talk about right now is how to basically structure what's called the down payment arbitrage. So here's the deal. You get a lead that comes in and the seller, the property's worth $200,000 and the seller owes $180,000. What do? So you got your marketing out there, got your direct mail, your pay-per-click advertising, your cold calling, your RVM. Lead comes in, you kind of do the comps on it and stuff. It's worth $200,000 and you find out the seller owes $180,000. What do you do with that deal? Most real estate wholesalers are going to, that's a dead lead. They're not going to do anything. They're not even schedule an appointment. They're not even going to make an offer to that seller. Well, I can tell you, one of our, how we get a lot of deals done and closed is through this down payment arbitrage. So here's how it works. House worth $200,000, seller owes $180,000. First off, we got to find out, is it a loan that we can structure a deal on or not? So we got to find out, talking to the seller or looking in the tax records, if it is a loan, we can actually structure a deal. Now, FHA loans, we can't structure a deal like that. A property that is like hard money financing, private money financing, we can't do anything with that. Any of those reverse mortgages, right? We can't do anything with that. But pretty much every other mortgage we can structure with the down payment arbitrage, right? So first off, we got to find that out. Make sure it's not those type of loans. Now, once we establish that and understand that, then we can book an appointment with the seller and we can go meet with the seller and get this deal under contract. So what we're going to do is, first off, is let me give you the premise and the understanding. Then I'm going to talk about how to go in the property and then pitch it to the seller and get the contract signed. So first off, what we want to do is when we're going down and we're meeting the seller and understanding that process, is that we're taking the $180,000 loan and we're wrapping that loan with basically we're creating a new loan. Here's the best way I can explain it, right? So here's my phone, right? I've got the iPhone Max or whatever, and I have this cover on it right here, and I'm just kind of pulling this out of the air, so just roll with me here. Anyway, so basically what happens is this, right, essentially is the $180,000 loan. Now, this loan has terms on it. The terms are, let's say 30 years, and let's say it's at a 5% interest rate and payments on 100, let's say it's, $1,200 a month, which includes taxes and insurance. So this loan, this is what the terms are. $1,200 a month, 30 years, 5% interest, right? That's the terms. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a wrap transaction, what's called a wraparound loan. That means we're going to create a new loan. And it's called basically it's an identical match, right? It's like we call it basically an identical match loan, but we're going to reduce the time frame. So here's the deal. This new loan that we're going to create and structure through the title company. Now, we're not going to have to create it. We're not going to create the paperwork. The title company, closing agent, or attorney is going to create this paperwork for you. So what they're going to do is, and they're going to do this loan, let's say it's going to have the same 5% interest. It's going to be the same amount, $180,000, but it's going to have the same payment of $1,200, but it's not going to have the same term for 30 years. We're going to reduce it down to, say, 5 years, and it's going to wrap right around, it's called an exact wrap loan, right? Wrap right around the current mortgage, right? And that's called exact wrap loan. We're going to basically wrap that loan. Same terms. The only difference is going to be, instead of 30 years, 5 years. Now what we can do is we can offer that as seller financing, right? That means a buyer, our buyer, is not going to have to be able to basically get a loan for $180,000 or pay $180,000 cash. That becomes very attractive in the marketplace when you're selling a property with $180,000 already in place, right? So that leaves is the down payment. It's what we agree to pay the seller. We could agree to pay the seller $1,000 and keep the $180,000 loan in place, and we could buy that property. I bought properties for zero money down, keep the $180,000 loan in place, and I bought properties just like that. So what our goal is with working with a seller is get the least amount of down payment as possible. That's what we're negotiating. It could be $1,000, $3,000, $5,000. The more the down payment, the harder it is to flip that property or sell that property to a buyer. So we want to keep that at least, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, under $5,000 for sure. So now what we have is we have a $180,000 loan and we have an agreed amount of a down payment we're going to give to a seller, right? Now we have something. So what we're going to do is, when it comes to structure, paperwork structure, we do a regular contract, just a regular contract. And then what we're going to do is what's called an addendum to the contract. And that addendum is going to say basically buyer agrees to pay seller X, let's call it $3,000 net at closing, right? And it says seller agrees to convey title via, it could be an agreement for sale, it could be a land contract, contract for deed. It could be one of those three. And what that means is that depending on what state you're in, depending on what state you're in, is going to determine whether you use an agreement for sale, land contract, or contract for deed. So seller agrees to convey title on an agreement for sale, right? On an exact wrap of the existing loan that shall not exceed $180,000 with payments in the amount of $1,200 that shall not exceed $1,200, right? For the term of 5 years. So that's what that's going to say when it comes to structuring the whole thing. Now, once you do that, the title company is going to know that they're going to structure an exact wrap. It's going to be an agreement for sale, how title's going to transfer, and it's going to be $1,200, and it's going to be for the term of 5 years. So they're going to understand that once you put that in the contract. Then you can say buyer agrees to purchase property and as is condition, right? You can say seller agrees to vacate property upon close of escrow, right? Things like that. So what happens is now you have an addendum and you have a purchase contract. So people go, well, what's the price of the deal? What are you buying it for? You're buying it for the $180,000 when the three, so that's essentially $183,000. But you want to have it structured where $180,000 is that seller carry and $3,000 is the down payment. That's why the addendum is so important, because it spells out what happens with the buyer agrees to pay seller $3,000 net at closing, and then the agreement for sale portion with the exact wrap loan. Okay, so that is basically the paperwork needed that you're going to work with the seller and get that signed. It's basically a 2-page contract with a 1-page addendum. It's very easy to do. We do them all the time. It's very simple. Now, this can increase conversions in your business dramatically. Understanding and knowing exactly how to do this can be a complete game changer for people because of this down payment arbitrage. Now, let's talk about how to pitch it to the seller, and then let's talk about how to sell it and make a profit, all right? So pitching it to the seller. So we're going in. First off, the seller has to be motivated. They've got to be motivated. So for an example, a lot of deals we do, the seller now has been transferred, or they're going to be transferred to another state. Like they're in Phoenix and they're going to go to Denver. And they're going to have to move to Denver for a new job, and they got this house down here that they purchased, and it's worth $200, but they owe $180. What do, right? They have different options they could do with this house, but they've got to move on. They got to get another property, and they don't want to pay 2 mortgages, or they don't want to pay 2 mortgage payments or rents or whatever. It's going to be a stress to them. So they got to get rid of this house. That means there's a motivation for them to do something with this property. So what we do is, after we're looking at the property, we want to make sure there's not significant amount of repairs on the property. This works great with newer properties that are fairly clean, and you don't have to do a ton of repairs, or a buyer comes in and they don't have to do a bunch of repairs on the property, all right? So let's say the property's fairly clean. It needs just like carpet and paint, maybe some landscaping and stuff like that, fairly minimal to get the property up to sellable or rentable condition. Then what we're going to do is we're going to talk to the seller, and we're going to talk about their options on what they can do. Well, their first option is they could list the property with an agent. Right now, the way I'm pitching this, I'm sitting there talking to the seller. I'm determining motivation, make sure they're motivated, which in this case they are. Second thing we're doing is we're going to give them their options, and the last option is going to be our option. So the first option is say, hey, Mr. Seller, have you thought about listing the property? And they're going to, more times than not, they're going to say, yeah, I've talked to my real estate agent. They're going to list it. It looks like offers are coming in, from the 200 down to like 180, 194, 193 range. And by the time I, sit on the market, and by the time I pay real estate commissions and closing costs, and I have to fix up anything on the property, I'm going to have to come out of pocket with money, right? Now, if they don't have that scenario, you could paint that scenario for them, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Typically, if a property's worth 200 and the seller owes 190, they're going to have to come out of pocket with $3,000 to $5,000 in that situation. So you ask the seller and say, let me ask you a question, Mrs. Seller. So are you prepared to sell your property to come out of pocket with $3,000 to $5,000? 99.9% of the time, they're going to go, no way, I don't want to come out of pocket on this thing. Definitely not. I wanted to make money on it, but I obviously know now I'm not. So the second option is, you can say, listen, have you thought about turning it into a rental property? And they're going, I don't want to do a rental. No way. I don't want to have to rent the property. Okay, so your third option is do a foreclosure where you just let the bank take it back. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a foreclosure. I don't want to ruin my credit. Or guess what? If you don't want to do all those, what we could do, Mr. Seller, is we could leave your existing loan in place for the term of 5 years. And what we'll do is we can give you some cash, like, anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, $3,000 to $5,000. And then what we could do is then what we'll do is take over the property, and we're going to find another family, either a tenant buyer or another buyer that will move in. Another person that's either buy and rent the property, and then they can pay the mortgage, and they can pay directly to the mortgage and live in the property and take care of it. But what this will do is it will take it off your plate, so you don't have to deal with the mortgage. Someone else will pay it, and they're going to put a down payment, which can go to you. So in that particular case, 9 times out of 10, the seller's going to go, great, right? That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's amazing. And then their question's going to be like this, is going to say, well, what if they default and don't pay the mortgage, right? Now, what we do, my company does, is we'll come in and we'll step in and say, listen, if they don't pay it, then we'll come in, I'll pay it. We'll make sure we get the property back, control of the property, and then we'll find another tenant buyer that can purchase a property and take over those payments. So we do that to suffice that objection or question or concern that we get from a seller. You don't have to do it. There's no obligation. You don't have to do that whatsoever. As long as you disclose and tell them that you're going to be selling this to another investor buyer, another tenant buyer, whatever. All right, that being said, now that you've pitched it, now you get the contract signed, what you want to do is then bring it to a closing agent, title company, and attorney, right? And they're going to have, what you want to have them do is have a servicing company service that loan. So now the new buyer, your new buyer, is going to pay the servicing company, and the servicing company is going to pay the mortgage company, and it's going to be an audited statement all the way across the board. That's what you want to do, is give to the title company. Now, how do we make money on this whole thing? This is the whole thing, right? How do we flip it? How do we do the down payment arbitrage? Well, first off, we got to look at what is the cash needed to close the deal. The cash needed is $3,000, right? The $180,000 loan's in place. So the total is $183,000, of which $180 is a carry, $3,000 is cash, right? So what we can do is we can put it out to the market. We can put it on Craigslist, we can put it on our email list, we can put it wherever we're going to put it, and put seller financing, property for sale, $13,000 down, of which seller carries $180,000, right? So what's the purchase price of the property? $193,000. It's $193,000, right? Right? It's not 180 less the 13. It's the 180 that's in place plus the 13,193. Now, out of the 13,000, so we get a buyer. Buyer says, "I'm in." It could be a buyer that's that's going to live there, right? Someone that's going to owner occupant. It could be an investor buyer that wants to have a property for a rental. Let's say the rent's in there, $1,600. Now they could rent out the property for cash flow, right? And they could buy a property for as little as $13,000 down, right? For them, it might be exciting, so they don't have to go get a mortgage and do all the stuff if it's fairly clean. So what's going to happen is you get a buyer that says, I want it, $13,000 down, $180,000. And what's going to happen is you're going to find that these are going to fly off the shelf. I mean, probably about well, I won't give exact numbers. We do a lot of these deals a year of these seller financing because our buyers love these type of deals. So what happens is you put it out and a buyer comes, I want it. So they're gonna come in, and you're gonna write a contract with them, and it's gonna be what? $13,000 down, seller carry $180 for the term of 5 years, payment shall not exceed $1,200, boom, right, it's done. So that's a purchase contract. It's exactly the same on the other way. The only difference is the arbitrage in the down payment, right? So now, bring it to the closing company, you have the AB contract, which is between you and the seller, $3,180. You got the buyer contract, which is $13,180, right? So now you bring them to the title company, they proceed with the closing, they're gonna handle the paperwork, they're gonna handle the money, they're gonna handle the agreement for sale, land contract, contract for deed, they're gonna handle the servicing company that's gonna manage all the payments, they're gonna handle all that for you. That's what a title company does, right? And now what's gonna happen is how the money is transferred is the buyer's gonna wire in $13,000 plus his closing cost. And what's gonna happen is $3,000 is gonna go to the seller, they're happy. And then the $10,000 is gonna go to you, right? So now you take a property that all your competitors are gonna pass on. You take a property that every other wholesaler is gonna pass on because the house is worth $200 and they owe $180, everybody passes on it, and you structure it into a $10,000 deal. Now, think of all the deals, if you've been wholesaling for a while, that you passed up on because of a no equity or minimal equity situation. Now, here's the thing. This works great on luxury houses. Just add another number, right? What if it's worth $2 million and they owe $1.8 million, right? You can do the same thing. Give the seller $30,000, right? And turn around and sell it for $130,000 down. Instead of getting $10,000, now you get $100,000. Guess what? I've done several of those deals, and it's amazing. It's the exact same thing. It's almost even easier with luxury homes. So the bottom line is that is the down payment arbitrage. That's how you pitch it to a seller. That's how you get a buyer. Buyers love these type of deals. And I hope it just opens up your mind just a little bit on exactly how this works. Now, I've been doing this for about 15 years now. We've done a bunch of these deals, but Flip2Freedom, if you don't know much about it, we have a podcast on iTunes. I wrote a book you can get over at Flip2Freedom.com. And we got a bunch of different courses that teach. I have this one course called Seller's Code that goes through and talks about all these different deal structures. And I give you the contracts and what to say and how to say it and how to write it and what to do and how to find the buyers and all that type of stuff. So if you like what you hear, then go down below and listen to the podcast. I cover a lot of great free information. I wrote a book, cover a bunch of great free information. And if you do want to become a Flip2Freedom Academy member, that option is there too. So thank you guys so much for participating. Hey, make sure you hit the bell on here somewhere, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got a much more content coming. So take care and God bless.